So coronavirus, so COVID-19, prior to the SARS coronavirus outbreak, we basically had thought that this was self-limiting, respiratory infection, it goes away, it really isn't that virulent, but we now know that it can be pretty nasty. So anyway, the viruses replicate using something called a nested set of mRNAs. And that's characteristic of viruses, the way they replicate, and I'll go into it on how they do it. But it's called a coronavirus because they get their name from their characteristic crown appearance when they look at micrographs. Coronavirus has a really large RNA genome, and it's widespread in birds and bats. So we saw it start out in China, and now Italy's counts are seemingly growing by the minute. When you look at real-time data, it's pretty interesting what's going on there. And what we see is now a lot of what's going on in the US is happening in the same velocity. There's a lot of people in the US who are becoming more and more sick. It's also seen in Iran, France, Spain, Germany, and South Korea, pretty much on every continent except Antarctica. So the World Health Organization declared this as a pandemic. This virus is zoonotic, meaning that it's transmitted between animals and people. It's also known to spread person to person, as we know, through coughing, sneezing, close contact like touching hands, touching a surface, then touching your mouth, your nose, your eyes, touching or eating something that is contaminated with feces. What we know about the persistence of the virus on surfaces are as follows. In metal, at room temperature, the virus can persist up to 5 days. Wood, the virus can persist at room temperature up to 4 days. Paper at room temperature, 4 to 5 days. Glass at room temperature, 4 days. Plastic at higher temperature can last 5 days, but at room temperature, it can go 6 to 9 days. So yes, plastic really held this virus more than any other surfaces. Pure alcohol was found to have the best reduction at 95%. What do we do? What do we see? We see fevers, cough, shortness of breath, gastrointestinal problems. But some of the real concerning complications is that it can lead to severe acute respiratory syndrome, pneumonia, kidney failure, and ultimately death. So the way it's tested is via a nasopharyngeal swab, where they put a swab, the doctor puts a swab up your nose or wherever's testing you, a few inches, and then or into your throat. And they'll be able to test to see if there's the presence of it. The incubation period can be 2 weeks and over, with about a 5-day average. So this basically means that between the time of exposure to the production of symptoms, it can be up to 2 weeks, 5 days on average, but up to 2 weeks. So meaning like I can walk around feeling all right, going to CVS, going to Whole Foods, going to the office, and not even knowing it. So that's pretty interesting because it is on the much longer side where we may not know we are infected. So how does a virus work? And without getting too super scientific, just to have a better understanding of what happens. So basically the virus comes and attaches to the cell, and in the most simplified version, it basically translates that RNA. Remember I told you it has a ton of RNA, it's really large RNA, replicates and transcribes its RNA, and then new little baby virons will take it, like little viruses are assembled in the cell. So usually what happens at this point is when the virus is replicated, these little babies are in the cell goes through a process called, it lyses basically, it explodes, and then those new viruses are released into the system. Well, something interesting that this virus does is basically when it infects a cell, it sort of fuses. Rather than exploding, it fuses into a healthy cell, sort of forming this big cell, and that allows sort of a quiet transmission of the virus to now a new healthy cell host. So really interesting. We don't see that across all boards for viruses. It's not the real classical way it replicates, but it's pretty interesting about the way coronavirus behaves. So they have these really important proteins called non-structural proteins, and this is something we have to understand because this really adds to its virulence, the way that it really affects us. And these proteins, they basically block the host cell's own genetic functioning, okay, like many other viruses do. They also block our innate immune system. That's our nonspecific first line of defense immune system, the ancient one. It promotes cytokine expression, increasing inflammation. It restricts the white blood cells from doing their jobs effectively. It inhibits interferons, which are an important mechanism because interferons are proteins that are released by the infected cell to signal to the immune system, hey, look, I'm infected, please come help, get the troops together. But by quieting that, the virus is now able to work in silence, basically, without the immune system being alerted. And it's crazy to think that these things are so tiny, but are so sophisticated, sort of like with a mind of their own. It's pretty wild when you look at that whole world of infectious diseases. So regardless, we are now over 1,000 confirmed cases and 30 deaths. And this is as of today, which is March 12th, I believe. But these numbers can completely change by the time this podcast comes out. As of yesterday, there have been 127,000 people infected worldwide with 4,700 deaths. That's about a 3.7% death rate. The World Health Organization previous estimate was at 3.4%. So the large bump of these numbers were at the epicenter in Wuhan, China. This is lower than the SARS outbreak in the early 2000s and also of the MERS outbreak in 2013, 14, 15. What we're seeing right now is a lot of deaths out of Italy. That's growing. So I'm assuming the numbers will be higher, to significantly higher when this show is heard, as well as here in the United States. So the following numbers are based on two reports, one on February 2017 that analyzed all of the cases up to February 11th, which I know was a while ago, but again, this is sort of the information that's coming out. They published studies. This is a published study in the Journal of American Medical Association called The Characteristics of and Important Lessons from the Corona Disease of 2019 Outbreak in China. And they analyzed data from the Chinese Center of Disease Control and Prevention of 72,314 corona cases as of mid-February, the largest sample that we've seen yet. And this was combined with a report of the World Health Organization and China Joint Mission published at the end of February, the 28th, by the World Health Organization. So they gathered all this information to give us the death rate, basically. So the death rate is the probability of dying if you are infected with the virus as reported in a percent. So that's basically the number of deaths divided by the number of cases. Okay, so remember, the number of cases are always going to be underreported because a lot of these folks are coming down with diseases or the infection, and it can be very mild to almost non-existent for some folks. So the reporting is going to always be underreported in the terms of cases. So keep that in mind when you look at this mathematical equation of number of deaths over number of cases equaling death rate percent. So the death rate by age is as follows. 0 to 9 years old, no fatalities. 10 to 19 years old, 0.2%. 20 to 29, 0.2%. 30 to 39, 0.2%. 40 to 49 years old, 0.4%. 50 to 59 years old, 1.3%. 60 to 69 years old, 3.6%. 70 to 79 years old, 8.0%, 8%. And 80 years old, 14.8 to 21.9%. There are more deaths in males than females. But to put those numbers into perspective, you'll have a 1% chance of dying in a car crash, and the likelihood of dying from heart disease will be 17%, and of cancer, 14%. So the fatality rate was 49% among those in critical cases, and elevated among those with pre-existing conditions, which we are seeing is the major issue right now. Folks, older folks with pre-existing conditions, comorbidities as we call it. Let me tell you the percentage for these pre-existing conditions. With no pre-existing conditions, 0.9% overall. Cancer, 5.6% to 7.6%. Hypertension, 6% to 8.4%. Chronic respiratory disease, 6.3% to 8%. Diabetes, 7.3% to 9.2%. And cardiovascular disease, 10.5% to 13.2%. You see where comorbidities come in because they definitely elevate the risk of dying from the infection. And this is a problem because most coronavirus patients have mild to moderate diseases, right? Mild to moderate illness, and they recover without really need for hospitalizations. And I put that on a graph yesterday, which was updated as of February 9th. So you can always check out that post with a few slides. Most of you have seen it before, or saw it yesterday. But according to the CDC, older adults and anyone with a chronic disease are most at risk, as I was saying. But one of the biggest factors is being over 60 and those comorbidities, as I was talking about, right? The chronic diseases. The big problem is that we live in America. That's a land of chronic disease. Unfortunately, we have about 133 million people. That's about 40% of us. Almost half of us are living in the United States with a chronic disease, right? And 81 million people have multiple chronic diseases, which makes this infection scary because so many of us are so sick already. So really this coronavirus pathogen, from what I remember learning in school, it was a lower pathogenic infection, and they infect the upper respiratory tract. They cause mild, cold respiratory-like illnesses. But what we're seeing is a more highly pathogenic one, right? Such as the severe acute respiratory syndrome one, the SARS one, where fluid is filling up in the sacs of the lungs, and that compromises the airway exchange, and folks are dying of pneumonia. So we don't know yet how lethal the disease is at this point. We're just having an idea right now, as it's somewhat still early on. We cannot pinpoint or predict it because it's underdiagnosed. And again, we don't see how it's unfolding fully yet. We will in the next few weeks. Some folks have mild symptoms. Some are never even diagnosed. We don't know how many Americans will become infected or die. I have not yet seen any models or trajectories from the CDC on how bad it can be. There are some other models out there, estimations, but from other authorities, but I'm still waiting on that from the CDC. We do know that it is more dangerous than the flu. We don't know how long immunity lasts. There's a chance that one can relapse. It might be even a likely chance. There's no evidence that your pets can contract the virus. So the estimated reproduction rate, that's the number of infections generated by each infected person, right? So the reproduction rate for this disease is somewhere between 1.4 and 2 to 3. And the scale is 1 to 5. 5 is the worst. And for an epidemic to end, the reproduction rate has to fall below 1. Again, reproduction rate is a number of infections generated by each infected person. Influenza's reproduction rate is about 1.5. Now you can understand this is why experts are pushing social isolation to hopefully bring this reproduction rate down below 0. There's no vaccine at the moment. And I'm not sure that if a vaccine is made, it would be completely effective. I would hope it be much more effective than the flu shot if and when it comes out, but I don't know if it'll even come out. But there is a quote from the Journal of Medical Virology that I want to put here. Various vaccine strategies such as using inactivated viruses, live attenuated viruses, viral vector-based vaccines, subunit vaccines, recombinant proteins, and DNA vaccines have been developed but have only been evaluated in animals thus far. But remember, our job is not to sit here and wait for a vaccine to come out either. It's now when we have to be proactive for each other. Also, we know that antivirals and interferons don't work. In America, we had a very slow response to contain it. We had a month of warning and the government did not prepare properly. We do know it is bad. We know it's going to get worse. As it moves up that curve. And as a country, we weren't ready. We're still not necessarily even ready. We're not even properly testing people for the virus. Hospitals don't have enough isolation rooms. We don't have enough beds, enough nurses, and enough doctors. So as I said, again, we need to be very much so proactive now as a community. Okay, so for the other part of this segment, I want to get into a few things that I am doing for myself. But I need to make disclaimers, so please don't get annoyed with me, but I have to make this and don't want to say that. But I have to make disclaimers to the audience. So, as a preference, this is not medical advice. You must consult with a professional. Ask your doctors, ladies and gentlemen, okay? Do not construe this to be a be-all, end-all. This is not a cure for coronavirus. Do not even consider this a prevention or a treatment either. I'm just sharing with you all what I am doing, okay? Remember that. I'm supporting my immune system and doing everything I can to keep myself and others safe. In the coronavirus, the biggest factor is immune suppression. One of its mechanisms for survival is to suppress the immune system and to evade it by reducing those interferons, as I mentioned, those proteins that are released in response to viruses. Well, coronavirus quiets that, turns off the light on that. So let's start with the basics. Okay, those hygienic strategies, you gotta clean your hands and you gotta do them often. You should be doing this anyway, but much better with soap. You wanna wash your hands with soap for at least 20 seconds, especially after you've been in a public place, especially after blowing your nose, coughing, or sneezing. Soap in itself is effective at reducing viruses because the soap molecules affect the viral membrane. That's the way that they work. And that viral membrane is basically the glue that holds the virus together. If you do not have access to soap and water, then you can use a hand sanitizer. Maybe you should always have it with you, but make sure it's over 60% alcohol, okay? And I did a whole show on hand sanitizers about how to choose them. If you're constantly using hand sanitizers, you want to stay away from the conventional ones because they have chemicals like triclosan, which in itself can weaken your immune system, and it's known to do that, and bioaccumulate the more and more you're exposed to it. So you can consider making your own. You just want to make sure you have strong enough alcohol. You can use 1 cup of alcohol to half a cup of aloe vera gel and about 10 to 15 drops of essential oils. Some of them that have been shown to be antimicrobial are lemongrass, citronella, geranium, peppermint, eucalyptus, orange, oregano, thyme, and other ones, okay? So hand sanitizer, remember, is an adjunct. Make sure you're always washing your hands. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, mouth, and unwashed hands. Cover your coughs, cover your sneezes, cover your mouth and nose. Utilize a tissue when you can, or the inside of your elbow. Throw the tissues in the trash. Always wash your hands. Now, as far as face masks, use them if you are sick. You should wear a face mask when you are around other people, like you're sharing a room or a vehicle or an office, or before you enter a healthcare provider's office. If you are not sick, though, you don't need to wear a face mask unless you are caring for someone who is sick, right? Face masks are in short supply, so we have to be mindful of those who need it much more than us. Clean and disinfect frequently touched surfaces, right? Like tables, doorknobs, light switches, countertops, handles, desks, phones, keyboards, toilets, faucets, sinks. Just keep cleaning them up. Keep your house clean. Don't go crazy, but keep your house clean. Remember I talked about 95% alcohol being on surfaces being biocidal. So if the surfaces are dirty, clean them. Use detergent or soap or water or alcohol, okay, as I mentioned. For close contact, avoid close contact for people who are sick. Put distance between yourself and them, especially if it's spreading throughout the community. This is especially important for people who are at higher risk of getting sick. As I mentioned, we may even want to avoid those folks to keep them healthy if you are sick, okay? I mentioned social isolation before, and I want you to consider this until it may even possibly become mandatory. You may have heard about the term flattening the curve. That means to avoid the rapid spike in cases which we are seeing, right? So if you think about a graph, on the x-axis of the graph, we see days since first case, and on the y-axis, the number of daily cases. So without the protective measure, the number of daily cases will spike more dramatically and more early on. We want to attenuate that spike such as to stay under the capacity of our healthcare system, right? We don't want to overwhelm the healthcare system, right? So again, really important to reduce the number of cases, the number of daily cases, and then reduce them, bring them down through time, right? So as to, again, not overwhelm our medical system. So with isolation, we spread those cases out over time. So again, consider avoiding large groups, large events. This may be the quickest way to actually protect yourself and others. Certainly if you're over 60 years of age, now's the time to protect yourself. As I was talking to my dad yesterday, I had told him he's 66, 68. Yeah, I know he's going to hear this and he's going to yell at the camera or at his phone how old he is. But regardless, I told my dad to stay inside, to stay indoors as much as he can. Only leave if it's necessary. He's a healthy guy, but we want to keep him and anyone else in the household and the rest of my extended family healthy. So if you are over 60, I would recommend to be as much in social isolation as you can until these cases go down. All right, so supplements that have either been shown to support the immune system and or be antiviral. Remember, as I just said, this is not used to prevent, treat, or cure coronavirus. Vitamin C, this protects our DNA and RNA. I mentioned the mechanism of how the virus acts as far as interferons and other mechanisms, but the big one is interferons. It acts as an antioxidant and it can reduce reactive oxygen species that are burdening our immune system. Vitamin C is immunomodulatory. In our immune cells, right, like lymphocytes and macrophages, they all have vitamin C in high concentration, right? So we help to protect these white blood cells with vitamin C. It improves the movement of these white blood cells towards a target. It enhances phagocytosis, which is the gobbling up of the infected agent. It kills the infective agents through oxidation and supports proliferation of more white blood cells. It also supports white blood cells in protecting them from reactive oxygen species that are created in killing those pathogens, so it keeps them healthy and safe. So vitamin C, boom, from the get-go, cheap and easy to take. So for me, this is something that I'm using. There's actually a report out of China now that's saying that 3 intravenous vitamin C research studies have been approved for treating coronavirus 19. What we see is that apparently there's IV vitamin C being used in China, and as per Richard Z. Cheng, MD, he quotes, "Early and sufficiently large doses of intravenous vitamin C are critical. Vitamin C is not only a prototypical antioxidant, but also involved in virus killing and prevention of viral replication. The significance of large doses of intravenous vitamin C is not just at an antiviral level. We therefore call for a worldwide discussion and debate on this topic." So again, early on, as I mentioned, they're really pushing it in China. So before you get IV vitamin C, you want to make sure you don't have a G6PD deficiency that can cause major issues if you're getting IV vitamin C and not tested for that in your blood work. But more convo definitely needs to be around IV vitamin C in the context of viruses, particularly coronavirus. So let's see where this research out of China comes, and hopefully, our medical system out here in America starts embracing things outside of pharmaceuticals. So vitamin A and glutathione. Why? As per my colleague, Dr. Ben Lynch, a genius doctor out there, he explained that the importance of these 2 agents in prevention of the pneumonia. Pneumonia, remember I said, is what's really the end stage that is killing these people who are infected. So what these agents are doing is, we see vitamin A can reduce the risk of respiratory tract infections. For glutathione, we see it in animals. And we see animals with pulmonary damage from a virus have a dramatic decrease in pulmonary glutathione and high amounts of oxidative stress, right? So this causes redox imbalances due to low amounts of antioxidants in the body. Glutathione, as I talk about a lot, is not just for liver detox, but it's an inhibitor of inflammation, and also a regulator of the innate immunity, that immune system, that ancient immune system in our body. So Dr. Ben Lynch believes that this is why elderly people are getting sick versus younger people, because of the decrease or the insufficient amount of glutathione in the lungs, plus other antioxidants like vitamin A. And as we get older, we absorb these fat-soluble vitamins less readily, and this is supported by multiple papers. So again, Dr. Ben Lynch, you can check him out on Instagram. I know he's on Facebook. He talks a lot about this, but this is really intriguing stuff. So for me, what I have, and again, under my care, the family members are on glutathione, vitamin A, making sure, especially the older people in my life, like my dad and extended family, they're going to be on glutathione. Again, make sure you talk to your doctor that it's safe for you to take before you go and take it or give it to anyone over the age of 60, okay? But remember, intriguing stuff, it's awesome stuff. Check him out. As of February 2020, there was a study published in the Journal of Progress in Cardiovascular Disease by McCarthy and D. Nico Antonio, and they published a protocol of nutraceuticals that have potential for boosting type 1 interferon responses to RNA viruses. Remember I told you about interferon, that response being reduced or silenced. And these include influenza and coronavirus. So what they did is basically they gathered the nutraceuticals that would have the potential for boosting that signaling process in response to the RNA viruses like coronavirus or influenza. And again, not preventing, treating, or curing, but these may support the immune system in response to an infection. And these include lipoic acid, spirulina, NAC, glucosamine, zinc, yeast beta-glucans, and elderberry. So currently for myself, I'm taking the aforementioned for the most part, plus a few mushroom tinctures from Life Cykel, which have been shown to support my gut, my immune system, and detoxification of the liver. So me, I'm always trying to do the most when it comes to taking care of myself, because it's really important, especially in these times. So As per Dr. Heather Zwicky, she's an immunologist, and she explains that herbs like astragalus are helpful in reducing inflammation and are antiviral. Golden seal and Oregon grape are toxic to viruses, and there's research on flu, but not corona, and bacteria also, which are important because bacteria can be a secondary infection caused by the pneumonia. Echinacea, it's best used in the beginning of an infection, and in a meta-analysis has been shown to reduce upper respiratory infections. Elderberry, which I mentioned in the protocol that I just talked about, has research that it blocks viral uptake. So she also explained that these therapies do increase cytokines, but no, not to the level of a cytokine storm, which I was getting a lot of questions on. If you don't know what a cytokine storm is, you can just Google it. But people were concerned that these supplements can cause a cytokine storm. And as per this immunologist, Heather Zwicky, she had mentioned that herbs do not go to the level of a cytokine storm, right? They will increase them, but not go to the cytokine storm. So, and you have to work very hard to get to that level to trigger it. And these are usually coming from super agents like staph enterotoxin or TSST1, as she explained. And on the contrary, scientific literature suggests herbs actually decrease cytokine storms. Again, it's always individualized. I can't speak for everyone. Check with your doctor again. So at no point should these supplements be used as a substitute to the basic interventions that I spoke about earlier. So important non-supplemental intervention, of course, handle your stress. It's ironic that the media has done such a good job at stressing us out in the first place, but stress on top of sleep are more likely, for me, the number one determinants of your immune health and how strong and robust your immune system is. So now more than ever, we have to find our stress reduction techniques every single day, period. And if you're over the age of 60, definitely. So that means not putting on the TV, watching it all day, hyping yourself out in sacrifice of you taking that time to meditate or do yoga or do breath work. Sleep, for me, another top one. Now's the time more than ever. Doesn't matter if you're 60 and over, 20 and over, 16 and over, it doesn't matter. Getting restful sleep is so important. It should be a priority. Getting to bed early, sleeping through the night, because that is going to be a huge determinant to your immune system. Movement, even if you're in quarantine, even if there's a forced quarantine, make sure you're moving. Make sure you're moving through your house, opening the windows, doing push-ups, doing sit-ups, doing pull-ups, doing yoga. That movement is so important at moving your system. Please make sure you're moving. Nutrient-dense food, of course. I talk about this all the time. I did a post on immune-stimulating foods about a few months ago, about 2 months ago. 1 or 2 months ago. So check that out. There's so many immune stimulating foods, so many really good foods out there that we can be eating that support our immune system. So these are just basics that I'm sure this audience is so educated that I'm sure you're already doing, but I want to re-stress them for you, re-emphasize the importance. So ladies and gentlemen, does it take a pandemic to remind us how not immune the United States or the world is? Right? It can teach us so many things that we think are permanent, right? So many things in the world that we think are permanent that they're just constructs in our head, because nothing is permanent. And does it take a pandemic for us to care about our health, care about our sleep, our exercise, our stress levels, to start eating right finally? Does it take a pandemic to care about our elders, to call them and make sure they're healthy, right? Does it take a pandemic to remind us how fragile life is, that we are not immortal, and that us or our loved ones can die at any moment? Like always, my intention and words are to teach and empower. So ask yourself, what has this pandemic revealed about you, to yourself? Who are you choosing to be in light of everything that is happening? There's no right or wrong answer, but truly think about, what has this situation brought outside of you? Because it's really important. Nature is trying to communicate with us very clearly that we need to stop, be more present, take care of each other. And sometimes, and I'm not blaming all of us, but sometimes we don't listen until the symptoms fully show themselves, until the pain reveals itself. Well, now we can finally listen and maybe treat each other and the world better. So just observe what you're creating in this situation. And though it can be a shitty one on the surface, you always have the power to determine how you respond to it and what defines you best in relation to what we see. So take the time to see the big picture, right? Our world, our community needs healing, but more than anything, we have to start with healing ourselves. All right, everyone, today's special guest all the way from Australia. I caught him when he was here in LA. My guy, Julian Mitchell, he's the CEO and co-founder of Life Cykel Mushrooms, a company that I have gotten fully behind. And you know that I am very discriminatory about the companies I get behind. So I wanted to get him in here and speak about all things mushrooms, which he's so passionate about and so knowledgeable about, and then speak a little bit about these mushroom complexes too. So Julian, thank you for joining, man.
Thanks for having me. I love the podcast, love what you're doing. And, I remember when we first met, it was just like one of those moments where like this guy's just on a mission, and it was very inspiring.
Yeah.
So the energy you were bringing was, again, very inspiring.
Yeah, likewise. No, man, like I think what we saw in each other is just a reflection of our passion and mission, right? Your mission was behind this, my mission is something else, but it's still like what we recognize in each other. And I think that you have been bringing a lot of people of the same realm within you've created your own community, a mushroom community of people who
It
love
happens. The Mushroom Church is what we're bringing
Mushroom
people into, which is a church of connection back to nature, most importantly, and connection and empowerment. That's the other piece, which is what you guys are all about here as well, which is how do we empower people to be healthier and live better, and mushrooms are one of those tools in the toolkit.
Yeah. What would ever in your life, and I know we'll talk about your background, but at what point do you go, let me get into mushrooms?
It was one of those pieces, I guess, where we were, I mean, for my background as a physio, worked in the English Premier League, thought, being head of medical was something that, I wanted to aspire to do. And I guess at that point, I just thought, what can we do at scale? And what was an issue at the time? And the future of food, I think, was an issue really that we were very passionate about in terms of how we're going to eat non-GMO food, organic food, where's our food growing from? How do we do it without cutting down all the forests? How do we do it without using heaps of pesticides? And so looking at all the options, and mushrooms were like an uncharted continent. It's like no pesticides to grow them. They can grow off, agricultural waste product. They can grow in very small areas, urban environments. They grow very quick. Great substitute for meat. So that was like step one. And then we went into the wonderland of mushrooms, and we found out, wow, medicinal properties and many other components. So we went from, I guess, an agricultural farming company to a biotechnology company, where we're really just working with nature, not against it.
Yeah, one of the beautiful things that you do is, and you just said biotechnology, is you add a lot of science with the mushrooms, the ancient, right? The ancient part, connecting back to nature. And that Venn diagram right in the middle is like really where we need to be, because we need to understand there's a lot about mushrooms we don't really know. So knowing how therapeutically they're helping us is so important, but also knowing, okay, yeah, let's explore this uncharted territory, like you said, a continent, and understand like, whoa, this is like some powerful stuff that can really help us. How important is getting back to nature for you?
For me personally?
Yeah, for you personally, and your.
Speaking of church, Sunday is a church where I'm trying to get to the forest every Sunday, trying to get out there, away from phone, away from tech. Barefoot in the forest, and just again looking for mushrooms is always fun, but just being there definitely changes the energetics within you, and I'm sure we'll be able to measure that in time, but for right now, viscerally and physiologically when you leave being immersed in nature that you feel amazing. So that's one piece on a Sunday that we like to do, some of the team members and I, and then every day during the week it's getting to the beach for sunrise. It's doing some breath work, some meditation, some yoga. I went down to Venice Beach this morning, went for a dip. I think there's a few people looking at me like, this guy's crazy.
Well, it's raining.
It's raining, and it's pretty cold, the water, but it feels amazing. It's a double espresso in the morning. So just being immersed in nature, and I think that's one of the biggest things at the moment is we're very disconnected to that in many ways.
100%. And we evolve with nature, right? Mm-hmm. So how much of disease is really just brewing in there because of our separation from it? And that's something we talked about when we first met. We were totally in it. We were going like, no, we need to get back to nature. Yes, we need to be going to sleep when the sun goes down, and when the sun comes up, the importance of that. And so I love that you live your philosophy, because that's the type of people that we like to be around. So all right, so now you're exploring these mushrooms, right? And you're going, let me start this mushroom company. What have you found about mushrooms? How spectacular are they to you?
They're more than one lifetime's worth of work. So there's never a scarcity of like, oh, we're going to run out of things to do with mushrooms. One, there's lots of problems to solve. Two, there's an infinite number, around 3 million species that we're aware of. 7% are the only amount that is discovered in the sense of what they may actually do for us. So there's 93% of mushrooms out there that we don't know what they may do, what key to what door they may unlock. And so we're talking today maybe about lion's mane and reishi and chaga and all these mushrooms, but we've got a library of 86 at the moment in terms of other mushrooms that can do other amazing things in terms of break down textile waste. We use some mushrooms for tackling antimicrobial resistance in animal immunity. So the overuse of antibiotics in animals, which is another big issue as well in terms of breeding superbugs for humans. And so we find, for example, just quickly in honey, for example, a lot of beekeepers will be using antibiotics to fight off disease and glyphosate and other issues that are causing a weak immune system. So these antibiotics, because the resilience of the bees is very low, but that antibiotic then comes through in trace amounts in the honey. And then what happens if that person's having honey for 5, 10, 15 years, and then they have some sort of issue and they need antibiotics, and they may have some resistance to that, which we're seeing.
That is uncharted territory. It really is. So how did you choose to use the ones that you're using, and why? And what have you been seeing? Because I'm such a fan of, well, we'll talk a little bit about lion's mane, but of all of them. But tell us more, like, what have you found about reishi, shiitake, cordyceps? What have you found that they're doing for people or in your research?
Sure. So if we start with, I guess, and each mushroom has their own compounds within them. So if we talk about shiitake, we're talking about one key compound called lentinan. And lentinan is amazing at preventing, so you have collagen and elastin, two key pieces of skin health. And so we know a lot about collagen. You've done a great podcast on collagen. Elastin is the other one where UV damage causes loss of elasticity and stimulates elastase to break down the elastin within your skin. And so as we're getting older, we're losing that elasticity. Especially in Australia, there's a lot of UV. In other countries, there's a lot of UV damage. And so the lentinan acts to reduce the amount of elastase being stimulated, reducing the breakdown of elastin and keeping your skin more elastic and more firm. And so this is a great anti-aging mushroom. Beyond that, with the shiitake, what you also notice is hair and nail growth. And so by nail growth, they become very strong. And also with your hair, it becomes very thick. And so this testimonially is a very popular mushroom for the beauty sector, but also, and you see it in a lot of Korean cosmetics as an ingredient, but you see it as its species name. And so therefore, they don't maybe recognize it as shiitake. But that's a beauty mushroom. It has antiviral properties, it has antibacterial properties, it has antifungal properties. So in their core, all of these mushrooms we're talking about are immune powerhouses since the dawn of time. If we go over and look at traditional Chinese medicine, for thousands of years, the reishi mushroom has been revered. It's been on the artwork, it's been in the temples. And so now with these extracts, we're putting it in a more bioavailable form. But the shiitake for hair, skin, and nails is amazing. It's an immune powerhouse. It's an everyday must-have in the toolkit, especially right now with what we're facing. And so that's the shiitake. If we go to the reishi mushroom, this is known as the queen of mushrooms, the mushroom of immortality. What we know from the science is that it helps stimulate interleukin-6 and TNF, tumor necrosis factor. And so this actually, once you consume some reishi, the studies show that within 8 hours, you'll get stimulation of your effector cells, your interleukin-6, your TNF, building a more resilient immune system, essentially at the core of it, and building an upgraded software. So your immune system is like a software system. If we think of, what does it look like? How do we describe it to people? It's downloading and upgrading our software. So then when new bugs come in, when new foreign particles come in, bacteria, viruses, whatever it may be, your body can remove it or address it or recognize it straight away. Because a lot of time with bacteria and things, they're dormant in your system, or they're there and the body's not even able to pick up on them. And so then they grab a hold and then they grow and they multiply. So it's about the software being able to recognize, hey, you shouldn't be here. You're not a part of us. And then take care of it and exterminate it, kill it, enter its DNA or RNA and destroy it so it cannot synthesize and reproduce. So that's the reishi mushroom is an immunomodulator, upgrading the software of the immune system, and also does great work in terms of liver detoxification. And so there's been great studies on that as well to show detoxifying the liver, the importance of that in terms of the buildup of heavy metals and toxins. And so as a detox strategy, the reishi is amazing. As immunomodulatory, it's amazing in terms of both autoimmune and hyperimmune systems and underactive immune systems where you're feeling overwhelmed, where you're feeling on the edge of sickness, you're getting a bit sniffly. It plays a great role there. So
Yeah, and I've noticed because well, when we first spoke, you had gave me the whole line. You said, "Here, try them out." I said, "Okay, yeah, I'm gonna try them out." And my roommate got sick, and I feel like she was sick, and then who else was coming? Someone else was coming into the house that was sick all the time too. Regardless, I was so vigilant in taking these guys, and because I wanted to do a little test, right? I didn't get sick at all. Not even run down, not even tired. I was like, that's when I started really believing that this stuff is super strong. But knowing how much you care for what goes in there, then I understood. Okay, wow, it's like there's a complete. You're completely putting all you have into it. Therefore, like it's got to be the highest quality, and that translates into because I was not getting sick. I was so surprised because usually when someone's that sick around me, I'll get sick at some point, but nothing, which is interesting. And I'm sure you heard that before.
It's great. I mean, we get to the point now, and as a backstory onto, I guess, why we believe that is the case is because we've got a great team of scientists. We've got a chief biotechnology engineer from Paris, and these guys typically go and work for, in other biotechnology companies, pharmaceutical companies, etc. And he was sort of seeing, well, there's a huge future in mushroom biotechnology, and so credit to him to come over from Australia and work with us. And he's been with us since very early days, Thomas Lucia, and he's really making him and the team making a great product. And so we do everything from start to finish. We think that's very important. So we grow the mushrooms. We are the farmers. That's how we started our business, and then we went into biotechnology, and we've got a great team, a mycologist, a nanotechnologist, a biotech engineer. All of these names, I didn't know what these professions were. Starting the company, and one of the nanotechnologists doing a PhD on beta glucan. So really trying to lead the science,
Yeah.
because mushrooms deserve that respect as well. As much as they've been used in ancient wisdom and things, it's now what can we use with modern technology and fuse those together. And so for you to get that testimonial, it's exactly that. We grow the mushrooms, we extract them, we have patents on our extraction process. It's all vertically integrated, and so we have complete control of the supply chain. We know where we're getting our water from, our ethanol from. It's all organic. All of those pieces are important, and they're all important for you to know, and I want to know those things as well. And testimonially, we're just getting great results, and it's gotten to the point where it's try the product. We're not going to sell it to you. Give it 2 weeks and let's see. And then we just, again, get constantly good results. So our testimonials, I think, are at 96%. For the lion's mane, it's 98%. So very happy with that.
Yeah, and what made you choose tinctures? Why is there a difference between tinctures or capsules or powders? Because there's mushroom comes in every form right now. Do you notice that one's better than the other?
Delivery systems are the key, really, to bioavailability and to potency. And so this is really a game of purity and bioavailability, and whoever makes or has the best bioavailable product will get the best results. And so that's important to us because I think a lot of dietary supplements on the market fit into that category of probably placebo, in the sense of, I heard it's good, I saw some research that it's good. Did I notice anything tangible? No. And I guess going back to empowering the customer, the consumer, our community, we don't want to say anything, try it for yourself and see what results you get. And so bioavailable wise, you want to be putting it under your tongue. You want to be opening it up. The ethanol helps with the vasodilation. Having it in a liquid form makes it more bioavailable. Putting it under your tongue means you're getting it straight into your bloodstream, which is the key. Because if it's going through your gut in a powder form or in a food form, then you've got acids and you've got everything, pH levels, everything trying to break it down, proteins trying to break it down. You're not going to absorb as much. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I notice I never noticed mushrooms helping too much. I did take it in a powder form for a little bit, and there's a lot of powder products for mushrooms now. But I noticed that it didn't help. I couldn't notice. That's basically what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
But I did, and again, like I don't love selling anything, but I do get behind these because I know what I felt. Like I didn't get sick, and now we're gonna move to the lion's mane.
Yeah.
What the lion's mane did, it was like maybe I overdosed. Or maybe I didn't, but all I knew is when I took the overdose, when I took the lion's mane, I was so hyper focused for hours, and I was like, "Holy crap, this is real stuff."
Yeah.
What have you found about lion's mane that you love the most?
I mean, from the research point of view, we read the research and we said, okay, improves nerve growth factor, it increases nerve growth factor, it improves neuroregeneration, it improves remyelination of the nerve cells. So, okay, that makes sense. But what we noticed, which wasn't in any of the research, is increase in dreaming, increase in REM sleep. So we get a lot of aura data sent to us. So the aura spectrum ring, which we didn't really know what that was prior to really starting the company in the lion's mane. But a lot of oral data showing increase in REM sleep, increase in dreaming, and was chatting to another doctor about that, and he was talking about activation of the pineal gland. And so this activation of the pineal gland is when you get your dreaming, and when you're in your REM stage, that's when you get more dreaming. And that's fascinating, and really getting that memory recall. And so that wasn't in any of the research, and that, again, testimonial, get it time and time again. It's interesting, but that's also really, I think, an activation and a consolidation of memory for the next day. And we know, I think the future of health, two pieces that are going to become very topical: stress and sleep. And we know sleep's very important for memory consolidation, for having a good day starts with a good night's sleep. We know that old adage, and so that lion's mane to improve REM is a game changer, and has been a game changer for a lot of our athletes and a lot of our customers. And then beyond that, the next stage is going to be more focused.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So remember when we were talking and you go, you may notice that you were dreaming more. And I go, oh my God, I have been dreaming more. Or recalling or remembering my dreams more, which is truly a sign of, that deep sleep.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because when I learned about lion's mane in school, we didn't talk about sleep. We talked about the brain properties. And when I learned about that, I was like, wow, this is pretty interesting that we're seeing this not only in me, but as you said, multiple people.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So lion's mane's been super powerful. Then what else? We have the cordyceps in there.
The cordyceps is another game changer for athletic performance, or for if you're trying to switch out of having coffee. And so cordycepin is one of the main compounds within cordyceps, and this helps improve ATP production, so adenotriphosphate, so the powerhouses of energy within the mitochondria, and also increasing oxygen uptake to the cells. And so we've seen a lot of VO2 max testing done, and that's improved their VO2 max and fatigue resistance. Almost like doing the breathing method or the Wim Hof in terms of oxygenating your body, saturating it with oxygen, so your fatigue resistance, so your resistance more to cold and pain and other things. It's the same as that with cordyceps. And so subjectively what you notice is, instead of a peak and trough with coffee, it's a 4 to 6 hour flow with the cordyceps. So less adrenal fatigue, less interruption to sleep. Though you don't want to take it too late at night, it will keep you up. Energy, stamina, libido, those things we've seen a lot of positive results from, which have been fascinating and great feedback again. So cordyceps in the morning to switch out your coffee, or if you really need to get something done, add it to your coffee, or as an insurance policy as well, if you've got an important day, but you've had a poor night's sleep, and even just the nerves of, say, you're having a big event tomorrow and you don't sleep tonight because of that. You wake up in the morning, if you have 2 ml of cordyceps, you can get through it fine, and you can not be lagging at all. So we found that to be useful there.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite adaptogens for the adrenal glands. Cordyceps has always been. It's awesome that there's that athletic component, or just everyday stress, right? Because our body will, totally be stimulated by mental stress and physical stress. Kind of doesn't know the difference, other than just going, okay, well, this is a stressful situation. Let's release these stress hormones. So being better to adapt to it is really cool. And are we missing one here?
What do we got? Turkey tail?
Turkey tail.
Turkey tail. So the turkey tail mushroom, I think this is the unsung hero as well. Within our team, we've got a staff of 22. This is probably one of our favorites. Turkey tail and the lion's mane. So the turkey tail, just what we find is an amazing mood stabilizer, because we know a lot of mood is regulated in the gut. The serotonin release receptors, the dopamine receptors. And so, healthy gut, which has been a huge topic for the last 10 years, is gut health, and have your kombucha and have your prebiotics and have all of these things. But there's been a great study out of Harvard Medical to show PSP, polysaccharide peptide, bit of a mouthful, within the turkey tail mushroom helps stimulate healthy gut bacteria. But what it translates to is, we've seen a lot of easing of digestive issues, Crohn's, celiac. What else is there? Other digestive issues in terms of IBS have been, just eased through the use of turkey tail, as well as mood. So that's been, any signs for performers of anxiety, any nerves, any anxiety has been really well treated or used with turkey tail. So turkey tail for the gut, lion's mane for the brain has been a great combination to tackle that. So the turkey tail is definitely a favorite, definitely a key. One here, the extract for turkey tail really tastes a bit like caramel. So the key, I think, to adoption as well, we're wellness warriors, so if it's bad for us, we'll consume it because we know it's good for us. But, really to get, again, what we were thinking as a team, how do we get mainstream adoption? Because that's what we need, that's what we want. We want the collective immunity to increase. the collective consciousness, to increase the collective health and wellness, and really getting everyone unlocking their potential. And so as a staple, getting that gut health right. With turkey tail, it tastes like a caramel, and it's very easy to digest. It's along with all of the mushroom tinctures, they're really easy and tasty in that sense, and by putting them under the tongue you get that absorption. So it's a very powerful mushroom, and yeah, I'd put it as a top 3.
Top 3. So turkey tail, actually, I've used a lot through my residency working with cancer, because there's data on it, especially with breast cancer. So it's been really helpful as an adjuvant to all of the other treatments. But folks who what I saw was folks who were taking it were doing a lot better, going through chemotherapy, going through radiation, even from surgery. So it's really interesting. I think that was a moment where I said, oh, there might be something in these mushrooms, because I wasn't really taking any through school. And then right after in my residency, that's when I started exploring them more. I mean, we learned about it, but really that's when I started bringing them into my life. And I actually started even eating more, like reishi, right? Shiitake, just mushrooms in general. And what we find is that even like a white button mushroom has been shown to help reduce breast cancer, right? Just literally adding mushrooms dietarily. Is that something you do outside of like, the whole spectrum of supplements?
The more mushroom, I had shiitake mushrooms last night in a curry. The more you can add mushrooms to dishes, and they're so easy to add to every dish. If you're making curry, whatever you're making, add them in there for sure. I guess going back to the next point is with CBD also. I think a lot of consumers in the community are a bit like, oh, does it work? Does it not work? Which one do I choose?
Right.
And so this is, I guess, what happens with capitalism when they see an opportunity. Everyone tries to build a brand and white label some CBD, and then away we go. But it does a disservice to the medicinal compounds of CBD and the actual utilization of that. And so we're going to see that within mushrooms as well. And I think we already have seen that with a lot of 95% plus of mushrooms come from China that are in the market today that are powders. If it's a powder, it's likely from China. And if it's from China, then I guess what we've just found, we have tried and tested these mushrooms, we just don't get those testimonials that we get with the liquid extract. The liquid extract are game-changing testimonials, and with the powders, you're not getting that, and maybe that's what you experienced as well. So it does do a disservice to mushrooms, and people say, they're okay.
Right.
They're powerhouses. They're game changers. You need to find the right one for you. And that's, I guess, why we just want to put everything out, in terms of the public, in terms of having a QR code on our product on the next batch, where we're doing heavy metals, mycotoxins, amino acids, beta-glucans, and just putting that all out there, as well as being able to show the whole supply chain of where it was farmed, because I think the future of food overall deserves that and needs that.
This was that's the number one reason, aside from even before when I tried the supplements, was when you told me all of that, I wanted to get behind it, because at that point then, because I work a lot with companies and try to find out which ones are really clean, transparent, heavy metals. But
that's what I was like. That's what inspired me. I'm like, this guy's on a mission, and a worthy mission that we need, because there's so much greenwashing out there.
Oh, yeah.
And even today, the greenwashing gets smarter.
Much smarter.
It gets smarter. And so we just got to get to the point.
Yeah.
And the businesses that are already doing that, just show that. And hopefully it raises the standard overall, because we're all on the same collective mission, which is, everyone goes in with the right intentions. If they start a food company, they want to help people get healthier, generally speaking.
Yeah, but you giving access to everyone, basically full transparency. That's what we are offering right now, and looking to even improve on, which is really important for all of us, and for me to get behind any company, to be honest. So you're eating the mushrooms. You have mushrooms, but you're putting them in extracts. The line right now is what, 5?
5 plus the 6, which is the chaga.
The new one.
The new chaga. So we sort of held off on chaga because we wanted to find us, again, so going back to supply chain, most of the chaga, is coming from, I guess, questionable sources, because it grows on birch tree. And birch trees are, at the moment becoming decimated as well. So the population of birch tree, because of climate change, is becoming less. Because of it's funny how the cascade of events take place. So there's no burn off anymore in a lot of forests, especially in North America as well. And so that means there's no burn off of birch trees, and birch trees require that for the seeds to drop to then reproduce. So they actually, have evolved with fire, the birch tree, and so they're used to having fire to then reproduce. Along with that, the temperatures are higher. They grow in cold climate, and so birch trees are, I guess, on the nose a little bit. So we wanted to find a reliable source, because this is where the chaga grows. The chaga grows off 1 in every 1,000 trees. You'll find chaga mushroom, and so the birch tree alone is very powerful. You know, you've got the birch bark, which can be made into a tea, which is very medicinal. You've got the birch sap, which is actually what xylitol comes from. And so it's a very powerful medicinal tree on its own. And then with the mushroom, the chaga, which grows over a 10-year period minimum, up to 20 years. So it's just growing over a long period of time. We know that it's pulling in a lot of nutrients. Its melanin levels are amazing. Its trace mineral levels are amazing. Its betulin, all these amazing compounds. It's a powerhouse. And so we just sort of held off as much as we'd love it to find a reliable source that we can rely on for the next 10 years, 10, 20 years, and be able to know that we aren't over harvesting and that we're harvesting sustainably, because the key is harvesting and leaving some of it on the tree so it can grow back.
Instead of ripping it all off.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the new one.
That's the new
The
one.
bottle's beautiful. All black.
All black.
Really
it
nice.
Deserved, it needed to be put on the pedestal.
It's on the pedestal, but chaga is so powerful, right? And what I love is, I actually mentioned chaga when I went over the airline episode about radiation or just exposures in the airport, just traveling, basically, keeping yourself strong. But the belief, I guess, is the melanin itself, which you just mentioned, having radiation absorbing properties, which is we haven't seen enough clear research about it, but we're starting to see that. And one thing I read was around Chernobyl, there was so many mushrooms growing, and you literally utilizing that radiation for energy, which is wild to hear. Or melanin even as an alternative source of energy, which there's some data now coming out. So chaga might be the most mysterious, but might overall be the most powerful one without even knowing.
It is. I mean, it's funnily in some circles known as the king of mushrooms. And that's, I mean, when we started taking it, our extract, after about 4 days, we looked in the mirror, and you have to look twice in terms of your eyes. The eyes, the veil in the eyes, and they just become a much more clear, much more bright, and you know, you're sort of like, what's on that? Because it is a beauty mushroom as well, because of that, the trace minerals, the melanin, but not just beauty, it's just an absolute powerhouse, like you mentioned. And so sometimes when you talk about these mushrooms, it can do this, it can do that, it can do this. It's just helping with your innate immune system, with the foundations, and from there you can do a lot more.
And one thing you had mentioned is the collective immunity, and Lord knows we need it more than ever right now, because and that this is what I talk about with this virus that's flowing through the world. At what point, what do we need to tell us that we need to get healthier? What do we need to tell us that we need to prioritize our health, our community, taking care of each other? I mean, how much more of a mirror do we need to see at this point? But for me, my goal, and look, I have no stake in the company, is for everyone to be taking at least your line of mushrooms, or at least dedicating themselves to their immune health and their immune system.
Absolutely. And I mean, other companies we started prior to this, I think we went in with a normal young intention of like, okay, let's do something to make money. And it never works out that way. And if even for us, we lost passion and motivation. But for us right now, this is not a job at all. This is very much our mission in terms of what we're trying to achieve and improve people's lives, and getting these mushrooms out. I genuinely believe with the lion's mane, everyone over 50 should be having this mushroom from a brain health point of view, and everyone under 50 who's trying to optimize their brain, because we know the lion's mane is the closest thing to psilocybin, the magic mushroom, in terms of its behavior on the brain. And so in terms of that neuroregeneration, that anti-aging, having a healthy brain, very, very important. But that goes for the full spectrum of, all 6 of these mushrooms. Absolutely. Any of my loved ones and friends, I'm telling them to have them, and they are having them, and that's great, and they're seeing the benefits, and they're getting that testimonially. So it's getting out there. Some concerns around, again, the greenwashing, and same as the CBD, where you're going to have lots of brands come in, and,
For sure.
are people going to feel disempowered because, it didn't work for me? So we do need to empower customers with everything. It's, hey, try it for yourself, do it for a couple of weeks and see how it feels. That's sort of our take on it. But yeah, beyond that, absolutely every person should be on these mushrooms. And then there's an exciting frontier to take place with the psilocybin over the next 5 years, for more serious cases of PTSD, depression, terminal illness. This is a part of our evolution. Mushrooms have always played a role ever since the dawn of time. If you look back to how the earth was perhaps colonized and inhabited with the fungi, and that story, and the stone ape hypothesis around how maybe we went from having a smaller brain to a larger brain very rapidly with the magic mushroom. So all throughout history, mushrooms have played a role. Even if you look at penicillin in the World War II, and comes from the fungi kingdom Penicillium, saved hundreds of thousands of lives as an antibiotic. And so if we look at cyclosporin, if we look at other medications, they have fungi ingredients. And so this is part of evolution. There'll be more in terms of drug development with mushrooms, no doubt. Some of the multiple sclerosis medications use fungi. But then on a health and wellness, preventative, collective immunity piece, these are an essential.
100%. I agree with that. And we need to more incorporate that as part of just our living, right? As part of connecting back to nature, as you mentioned. Man, I'd love to see psilocybin help folks who really need it most. Unfortunately, there's a lot of politics behind that, as we know. But maybe one day it's cleared out
It's
and you.
happening quicker than we thought.
It is.
It's happening quicker than we thought it would. I mean, we don't have any real vested interest in that. Currently, we work with medicinal functional mushrooms. And there's some great companies and great research institutes doing great stuff. Unlimited Sciences, doing some great research out of Denver. MAPS is another one. And so you've got some other companies starting up. So it's starting to warm up. It's just always the, I guess, idea around capitalism and intention and what we're trying to achieve, and hopefully we can get to that space, because are we evolving like you think we should? I mean, what's your take on humanity if you zoom out right now? Are you excited? Are you optimistic?
No, I think we're devolving. Maybe not with our innovation and technology, but we certainly are from the sense of connection to nature, our health. Right? We have all these scientific breakthroughs, but are we healthier, truly? Like, is our quality of life healthier? Do we feel better? Are we radiating? No, I would actually argue that it's going the other way. So that's my opinion, and I know that you probably share the same one. So we need some breakthroughs. As we mentioned, the rule of thumb, getting back to nature. That's so huge, because there's too much stimulus, way too much. In front of us, and I think it's really affecting the way we live.
We need to simplify things, is sort of what you're sort of saying, and we can have all of these tools and technologies, and like you said, we can aim to get to Mars, but you know what happens in a crisis like right now? Are we able to feed ourselves? Are we able to be self-reliant? So this is very humbling right now.
It really is, and that's, and look, like, you know, I'm a science guy, but I always think about other sides to things, like why. Because I don't believe in mistakes at all. I don't believe anything's random at all, even the things that are seemingly random or seem like most mistakes. So it's like, why are we going through this? What's happening in the country? What's happening in the world? And what are we supposed to take out of this? Because people are dying. So I guess that's we need to understand. Let's go back to something deeper, right? Because we are out there. We are way too in our phones. We are way too in our vested interests. We've lost community. 100,000%, which is something that's important to you and me. So yeah, the immunity of the community is so important at this point.
Absolutely. Look after your gut, look after your brain, and then beyond that, look after your family and build that connection. And I mean, you know, the work that Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, and these guys are doing around good vibes and bad vibes and quantum physics, and even the amplitude and the frequency that comes from a heart that is feeling love and oxytocin and all of those things. There's so many aspects to it, and there's some great groundbreaking work being done, but it all boils back down to the basics.
Yeah.
Very basic stuff.
And which I fully get behind, and those two are amazing. The part about mushrooms which always fascinated me is the sort of like the community that it uses to connect even trees underground, right? Like to actually, what I was reading is, I think it was when a tree is sick, another tree will help that other tree. But the theory is that it utilizes this fungal community underground to feed nutrients. It's sort of like a net in many ways. So how ironic it is that you want to work on community, but you're using something in nature that works in a community, in an ecosystem, which is incredible.
Which I think for us is how we have to, karmically embody, if we're going to be a part of a mushroom industry and be pushing that forward and being advocate for that. It's, well, how does the mushrooms and mycelium work in nature? And again, working in harmony, because I guess what we've learned in business is that you don't need to force things. Things will flow in the right way. And so how does mycelium work in the nature? It works exactly like that in terms of, if you lift up a big rock in a healthy forest, you'll see an undercoat of white netty mass, which is the mycelium. And what it's doing is breaking down the rock, breaking down the minerals, which the tree and the roots cannot access, and delivering those to the tree in exchange for starches. So it's a symbiotic relationship. An evolutionary relationship requires mutualism, mutual benefit. And so I guess that's within the community that we live in, and in relationships that we have, and within the health we have with our own body and the health we have with the environment. Because what we see today is a lot of taking, a lot of cutting down forests, a lot of endangered species getting removed and extinct, and it's just take. And so it's time for us, I think, to collectively look at the full spectrum of the micro in terms of how we, looking after our bodies and building a temple and treating it like a temple and serving it, and then how we're serving our communities, then we can be served.
Yeah, 100%. That's the total mindset of consumerism, consumption, right? And give it to me quick as possible too. On top of that, so the work you're doing is wonderful. All right, so any plans? I don't know if you can give away the top secret stuff, but any new mushrooms coming in down the pipeline, or anything else you're planning in the future for the company? Just what do we have to look forward to?
We have a range of oral sprays coming out. So again, delivery mechanism is important to us, and getting that absorption and convenience and taste and all of those things. So we will bring out. So with our mushroom extracts now, we have Kakadu Plum, which is an indigenous bush fruit from Australia, from Arnhem Land. It's understood to be 60,000 years old as the culture. And in terms of its ability to be resilient to the environment, it's very harsh up there. Australia's a very dry place. So anything that grows well and into a fruit has gone through a lot of struggles in terms of that resilience to its natural environment. Yeah. And so it's very high in vitamin C, highest fruit in vitamin C. And so this is a synergistic benefit with the mushrooms. What we will be bringing out with the oral sprays is lemon myrtle, which is known to be more lemon than lemon, is the sort of saying, but great antibacterial, antiviral properties. Another gift from the Dreamtime and from the Australian Indigenous communities, and where it grows in wild. So bringing bush foods and infusing those with mushrooms has been a very synergistic and beneficial product. But the oral sprays, we're bringing out some capsules. We are working on a mushroom burger right now, which grows in 12 days. It grows in 12 days, 4 ingredients, USDA organic. And so we believe that's the lowest carbon footprint burger in the world, and it's pretty tasty.
Wait a minute. You grow the burger and then you eat it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Straight from growing to eating.
In 4 days?
12 days.
12 days, okay.
4 ingredients.
4 ingredients.
USDA organic.
What?
So this will be coming out in a few months.
Oh my God.
So I'll be sending some your way. So that's something being a biotechnology company allows us to play in different spaces of mushrooms and create and innovate. And so the team of scientists that we have they're artists. They're creating and playing with biology.
Yep.
But our premise, of course, is to not manipulate and overburden nature and think that we can do it better by taking this compound and putting it together. We keep everything full spectrum, keep everything harmonious, but reflect how do things grow in nature and try to mirror that as much as possible, because that's when you get the magic.
I'm looking forward to that burger. It just hit me that there's a burger that grows in 12 days with 4 ingredients. It's organic. I'm trying to, well, hopefully that blows away the alternative burgers that are out there that are not even anything near healthy,
and that's sort of why we
super
started
processed.
Again. We're just like, this is not evolution.
It's not evolution. We're de-evolving
we're
eating
back.
this crap, man, and it's crazy. So thank you for doing that. So how do people learn more about everything that you're doing, this line?
Sure, social media, we're very, I guess, present there. It's a key channel and a great channel to talk to our audience, so you can DM us there, or you can talk to us on our website, so lifecykel.com, LIFECYKEL. That's CYKEL, which we made it a little bit tricky for people to find us on Google. We were inspired by Northern Europe and Scandinavia in terms of parental care, sustainability policies, things they were doing. And so we thought, let's just mix it up a little bit and spell it that way. So that's the name of the brand. But yeah, website, email, info at Life Cykel, or Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all of those channels. Look forward to listening to this podcast and getting this one out there to our audience, because they're all a big fan of you guys.
Yeah. Looking forward to trying that burger, which I'm still thinking about because I'm kind of hungry. And yeah, man, I appreciate you coming. Whenever you come back, we'll talk more. And yeah, man, stay safe in this climate, but we all can. And we can really start by incorporating literally something that we evolve with, like mushrooms. My man Julian dropping bombs. I knew he would. Listen, I say this all the time. In 3 years, I've supported 3 companies fully. And this is the fourth one because it's such a good company. I do think he's doing great work. It's grounded and rooted in such positivity and need to help ourselves and our community, the theme of the whole day today. So yo, just go get yourself some mushrooms. They're gonna be really good for you. They're gonna be good for your family. Check with your doctor, of course. Can't make any recommendations, but I love them. All right, so enjoy your week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and take care of yourself.